This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Super Showdown from the Melbourne Cricket Ground in Melbourne, Australia. I am the Solomonster. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video to like it and leave a comment. I want to know what you guys thought of the Australian Super Show. We had 70,000 fans. First time WWE has had a stadium show in Australia since its global warning event back in 2002. That was 16 years ago. They just added that show to the network for those of you who have never seen it before. I don't know offhand what section it's in, but it is on the network now. You can go back and check it out. That show had a main event of Brock Lesnar, The Rock, and Triple H for the undisputed title. And here on this show, we had a main event including Triple H. Some things never change. I woke up at 6 a.m. on my birthday here to watch this show so that I could get this review up as quickly as possible, and I wish I would have slept in. This was, I think, the best way to describe this show. It was a glorified house show. I see a lot of people saying the same thing because I put a poll up on Twitter and just took a very quick look at what some people were saying on my timeline, and I would agree. Glorified house show. I think that if you went into this show with very low expectations or expecting that it was going to be a glorified house show, then this show pretty much met your expectations. Maybe it even exceeded it a little bit if you were really into the main event with the stars and everything. If you went into the show expecting some kind of blowaway, hey, it's a big pay-per-view, it's, WrestleMania style, big stadium, they're going to do something big, then I think you were left disappointed. And judging by the early results of the poll, although thumbs up is winning out over thumbs down, the large majority of you so far have voted meh. I think over 50% so far have voted meh on this show. I think that's probably a good word to describe it. So let's get into it here. We'll just go through the results from the beginning. What was supposed to be a 5-hour show, I believe ended up being 4 hours. So the schedule definitely listed 5 hours originally. I was not at all opposed to shaving an hour off this thing. I generally think these shows are longer than they need to be. But it opened with the New Day defending the Smackdown Tag Team titles against Sheamus and Cesaro. I thought this was a good little match, nothing more. It was Kofi and Woods in there representing New Day. Brogue kick, attempt by Sheamus was foiled. Cesaro tagged in, and he rocked Xavier Woods with an uppercut. Gave him the swing into the sharpshooter. That got broken up by Kofi. Kofi hit the Trouble in Paradise to Sheamus on the outside, tagged in. And they won with a neat finish where Woods hit a backstabber to Cesaro, held him in place on his knees for Kofi to come off the top rope with a double foot stomp. New Day retain. I thought this was fine as an opener for what it was. Would have been cool, I think, to open the show with a hot cruiserweight title match and the big title change that came later in the show. But this was fine for what it was. It never rose to the level of even some of those really good tag team matches we've gotten on Smackdown TV in the last few months. This was okay. We have Becky Lynch and Charlotte for the Smackdown Women's Championship. Lots of love for Becky Down Under, less so for Charlotte. If this show was in Toronto or if this show was in Montreal, we would hear nothing but nonstop Bizarro World references from the announcers. I didn't pick up on one here on this show. I guess here in Australia it's okay because it's not Canada. Charlotte went for her moonsault, which the best way I can describe it would be beautiful in terms of flight. When I watch Charlotte hit this moonsault in her matches in general, not just this one. Beautiful flight, turbulent landing. Always. Always. Almost every single time I see her hit that moonsault or go for the moonsault, because she rarely hits it, it looks picture perfect in flight, but then she either over-rotates or she glances her opponent or she lands practically on her feet when she's not supposed to. It just never looks quite right to me. Becky hit her with her knees on the landing. Becky goes up top for a leg drop. She goes up top for a guillotine leg drop. She misses. Becky, at this point, getting very frustrated. Cannot put Charlotte away. So much so that she decides to powder out of the ring. She grabs her belt and she's going to leave. Charlotte speared her into the barricade to stop her from leaving and threw her back inside. She hit the second spear of the match. Well, third, I guess, if you count that little tackle I just mentioned on the outside as a spear. I guess it was more of a tackle and not so much a spear. But instead of going for the cover, after this spear in the ring, she locks in the figure 4. And as she goes to transition into the figure 8, Becky reaches behind her where the belt is laying on the mat and just begins whacking Charlotte with the championship for the disqualification. So Charlotte wins the match, not the title, because this feud is, this feud is going at least until Evolution. The Evolution pay-per-view is on October 28th. Probably longer even than that. I know they have their little Starrcade house show set up for late November, and they're having a cage match on that show, so who knows how long this feud's going to go on for. But as Becky was leaving, Charlotte attacked her in the aisle, because she's a sour sport, and Becky gave her an exploder suplex on the floor, a running knee to the face. Charlotte was sitting up against the barricade, so she got kneed in the face. Lame finish, but, they needed to find a way to try to get heat on Becky and keep the feud going. People do not want to boo this woman. You can go and flee the country if you want to. You can flee the U.S., you can go to Canada, you can go to Australia, you can go anywhere you want. People do not want to boo this woman. They will not boo her, no matter what you do, no matter what you try. But they're still booking her like a heel. She's making all the mean faces. She's grabbing her title like a sore sport and trying to run away. I mean, that's the formula. They don't know anything else but their basic formula on how to do these things. So she's the bad guy now, but, I guess she's going to cheat to keep her title, but we're going to keep cheering for her. I don't really see that changing anytime soon. Match itself, I thought, was okay up until the finish, which was lame. They have since announced the rematch for Smackdown this Tuesday. It will be Charlotte and Becky once again for the championship, and I'm sure this one will also have no decisive finish because I don't see this wrapping up. I mean, the earliest I would see them wrapping this feud up would be Evolution, and I'm sure that will end up being some sort of gimmick match, some kind of stipulation. So we'll see. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. They have to find a way to get to Evolution. We have John Cena and Bobby Lashley against Kevin Owens and Elias. Shawn Michaels' hair fled and went to John Cena's head. This is as long as I've seen Cena's hair, even from when he used to have a little bit more hair on his head back in the day. I've not seen him with this much hair on his head, so it's a little disconcerting. I don't know, it's a little weird seeing him like that. But he's been living in China now the last few months. I think 3-4 months now he's been living in China. He's filming a movie, something I think with Jackie Chan. So I guess no Google for John Cena. I think, pretty sure Google is still banned over there. This was every house show tag team match that you have ever seen in your entire life. If you think of this show as a glorified house show, this was the quintessential house show tag team match. No Leo Rush in Lashley's corner. Lashley dominated the first half of the match all by himself. Finally, the heels took control. They built to the hot tag to John Cena. He came in, he hit the running shoulder tackles, 5-knuckle shuffle, attitude adjustment to Elias, and then he busted out what Michael Cole called his 6th move of doom. And so clearly they are self-aware. And Cena's 6th move of doom, and I know he debuted this a while back. There might have actually been, was it in Japan? They had some kind of a live event, maybe like a month ago, and it was the same exact match, I think. It was Cena and Lashley against Owens and Elias, I think. And Cena had debuted his 6th move of doom, and he used it again here, and it is a literal punch to the face. They built it up, all tongue-in-cheek on commentary, like he was debuting some sort of new twisting corkscrew moonsault 620 plancha, and then he delivered a punch to the jaw. And he pinned Elias for the win. Cena grabbed the mic after the match, did his usual, "I'm happy to be here, thank you so much for allowing me to perform in front of you" speech. The only thing missing was him saying, "Good night, get home safe." That's only because they didn't go on last. Nothing wrong with it. It's all, nice for Cena to thank the fans and everything, and who knows when we'll see him again. I suspect not for a few more months. But again, there was absolutely nothing of any note to speak of here, other than it was John Cena's first match in a few months, and he debuted here on pay-per-view a punch as his new finishing move. Well, look, the guy's 40 years old. He's getting up there. His body's all beat up, and so you gotta take it easy. There's no easier move to hit than a punch. The guy's looking at the long term here, right? He's playing the long game. John Cena wants to be able to come out here when he's 60 and do this. And he's not going to be able to do that by doing flippy moves or, or running dives out of the ring. You know, John Cena is one of the few people on this roster, even when he was full-time, who never did dives. I cannot remember John Cena. I'm sure it must have happened at some point, like a big pay-per-view spot. I cannot remember John Cena ever doing a dive. Like Roman Reigns. We'll see him bust out that top rope dive every now and then. Undertaker used to do it all the time. He teased it tonight. This morning. I'm all fucked up. My timing is all fucked up. I think it's morning, right? Here it's morning. There it's night. John Cena is... he's dumbing down his moveset, which I didn't think was possible. But there you go. Asuka and Naomi against the hometown girls, the Iconics, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. Let me just say this, if I may. It makes me absolutely sick to my stomach to see Asuka out there dancing when she should be killing. And, I mean, you know, I just watched this, and I know her and Naomi, I used to joke that, you know, where are they? They're missing. We haven't seen them. They're not on television. They must be in catering together. Apparently they were. And so they decided, well, we don't know what to do with these two women because we have our main feud for the championship, and it's not their turn yet, and so we don't have anything better for them to do. So I know, let's put the two of them together as a tag team. And I swear to God, you know, if this company had Bruiser Brody, if the Bruiser Brody of the late 80s were alive today, first of all, he would be disgusted by what he sees here with this product. But if Bruiser Brody was around today and they had their hands on him, they would put him in a suit and they would make him a fucking stockbroker. So they have Asuka out here dancing and shucking and jiving and doing all these different things. And it just makes me sick to my stomach. The Iconics came out. They got a nice ovation, but not much after that. At least that's how it came off watching on TV. Not as big of a reaction once they got to the ring as I expected them to get. I mean, they are heels, I guess, but they worked over Asuka first for a little bit until she tagged in Naomi. Naomi was about to hit some sort of springboard move from the apron when Billie Kay yanked her off the apron and she hit the apron face first. Peyton sent Asuka into the barricade that took care of her. They got Naomi into the ring. Billie held up Naomi for Peyton to do a running knee to the side of the head, and they got the win. And this was an absolutely nothing match. This match was a nothing burger. Now, my hope going into this was that the only reason they paired Asuka and Naomi up, other than they have no idea what to do with either one of them, and with Naomi, look, you know, Naomi's talented. I'm not trying to shit on Naomi at all, but what they're doing with Asuka, like Naomi's whole gimmick is I glow and I dance, and that's what she does. Her entrance, she comes out, she's glowing, she's dancing, fine. Asuka, though, is this really the best that they could come up with for Asuka? Asuka makes friends with Naomi. She wants to fit in. A few weeks ago, they're mocking her accent. She doesn't know English. You know, all these things they're doing with Asuka, and it just infuriates me. It absolutely infuriates me. And my only hope going into this was that the real reason they paired these two up was to give Peyton Royce and Billie Kay a team to beat in Australia. At least Asuka didn't get pinned. That's the best thing I could say about this. The right person got pinned in this match. I hope that's the only reason for the formation of this team. And now that Super ShowDown has come and gone, and the Iconics got a hometown win here in Australia, and being that it was Naomi who took the losing fall, I can only hope that on Tuesday, Asuka does the dance of death on her corpse on television on Tuesday. AJ Styles and Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. No disqualification, no countout. There must be a winner. The WWE title is basically, you know, we call this a glorified house show. It's basically a glorified mid-card title now at this point. Even on a show with no universal title match, they slot the WWE Championship in the middle of the card, which was inevitable because we all knew Undertaker and Triple H was the real main event on this show, but still, it saddens me. And this is not just a one-time thing. This has been going on really consistently since AJ Styles won the championship. To see the you know, what really is supposed to be the crown jewel, no pun intended, of the company push down the card like this is pretty shitty, in my opinion. I did like how they started this. AJ paused when he came out. He paused at the head of the entranceway, took the title off, just threw it down on the ground, and just stared down Samoa Joe from one end of the aisle to the other. Joe was on the other end, outside the ring, just pacing back and forth. And then AJ runs down the long aisle, and they just start going at it. And I like that. I like that way of opening the match. At least they didn't open this grudge match with a collar and elbow tie up. We've seen that before. It's always very silly. I hate your guts. You stalked my family. I'm gonna kill you. But first, let me show you this sweet arm drag. We didn't get any of that shit here in this match. They went at it right away. This was supposed to be a fight. That's how it began. The crowd then went mild for a good part of this. I thought the match itself was very good. I thought this was probably the first or second best match on the show, because I enjoyed the six-man that came after this. So this was one of the best things on the entire show. It just felt like it was missing something. And maybe it was the crowd. I think it was probably the crowd response to what was going on that took me out of it. I don't know. I feel like the same thing, though, happened with AJ's matches last year with Kevin Owens. The same thing happened with his matches earlier this year with Shinsuke Nakamura. And here again with Samoa Joe. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to account for the crowd being so quiet for, the large duration of these matches. And typically they pick up towards the end. Maybe that's just the way that AJ structures his matches now, the way they sort of, they build. They start slow and they build. But it would have been nice for the crowd to be a little more amped up for what they were seeing here, because this feud on television has been booked. I think for the most part, I've liked the way they've handled that, with Joe making it personal. He's going after the family. He's just gone psychotic because he legitimately got screwed out of the championship in their last match. So I'm a fan of the feud. But again, I think the crowd maybe just took me out of it. Joe grabbed a chair midway through, which was legal, but AJ kicked it right back in his face. AJ then beat Joe down with the chair, opened it, put it down, and he went for a corner splash. Now the chair is sitting in the ring. AJ goes for a corner splash. Joe catches him for that Uranage slam, or I guess the sit down, I think he calls it, right onto the open chair. So that was pretty brutal. Joe grabbed a table from underneath the ring, which got the biggest reaction of anything this entire match. I'm pretty sure up to this point in the show, that table got the biggest reaction of anything on the show. Now, the good thing about the table is that unlike, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and Triple H and all the old guys, the table never ages. Like, at some point, Undertaker will simply not be able to wrestle anymore. Triple H will not be able to wrestle. Shawn Michaels will not be able to wrestle. It is inevitable. I mean, at this rate, I think it may be another 25 years before they retire. But at some point, everybody gets old, they age out, and you can't rely on them anymore. For a company that relies very heavily on the legends to come out and save them, at some point, you just get too old, right? And you can't do it. The table, though, the table never ages. It's the legend that the company can always rely on for a big reaction whenever they need it. They should have the Dudleys induct the table into the Hall of Fame one day. It gets more chance and a bigger reaction than most of this roster does. So Joe set it up in the ring. AJ ended up, or the table that is. But it was AJ who ended up putting Joe through the table with a powerbomb. Upon impact, Joe immediately grabbed his knee. And he told the referee, oh, it popped. Not the crowd, that is, his knee. Styles saw this, immediately targets the knee. At this point, though, I knew exactly what they were doing. I could see the finish in my head. They were giving Joe an excuse to lose. That's exactly what they were doing. Styles hit a 450 springboard splash onto the leg. Later on, he went for the phenomenal forearm. He had hit the forearm on the outside moments earlier, but this time, back in the ring, Joe turned it into a choke. AJ fought out of it, got Joe in the calf crusher, and Samoa Joe tapped out in agony. As I said in the predictions that I did last week, I didn't think Joe was getting the title here. And I'm not convinced that he's getting it at all, but if they were going to switch the title, I thought it was way more likely to happen at SmackDown 1000 than it was here, especially if they're going to be looking for a special moment on that 1000th show. I mean, beyond the, Evolution reunion and what that may or may not lead to, I can't think of a bigger moment than having a WWE title change on that show. And I'm not saying it will happen, but of these two shows, I always thought it was way more likely to happen there. It's only 2 weeks away than it would, on this show. But again, I thought this turned into a very good match that was hurt by just an overall lack of energy. For what was supposed to be going in this big grudge match for the championship. That part of it was disappointing. The action, though, was very good. AJ also was bleeding from the mouth for a good part of the match. So, yeah, this was up there as one of the best things on the show. Ronda Rousey and the Bella Twins against the Riot Squad. Liv Morgan back in action and I guess not pressing charges against Brie Bella for her violent assault. Right away, before the match even begins, we see Nikki Bella and Ronda Rousey playfully arguing about which one of them was going to start the match. Nikki wanted to start, and Ronda said, no, I'll start because she's the champ. So they went back and forth, right? Foreshadowing. The Bellas proceeded to wrestle 95% of this match. We did get Brie and Liv Morgan in the ring together. Nobody was killed or maimed, so that's good. Rousey finally gets the hot tag, runs wild with a bunch of judo throws. She and Sarah Logan primed for, or had Sarah Logan primed for an armbar. Liv Morgan breaks it up. Rousey then looks at the two of them. She puts them both down, and she says, okay, I'm going to give both of you arm bars. And she proceeds to apply a double arm bar, one arm bar for Liv, another arm bar for Sarah Logan. They both furiously tap out. And so the Bellas and Ronda Rousey are successful. The Bellas celebrate with Rousey in a very disingenuous way. I was watching Nikki the whole time. And you could just see where this is going. Now, I suspect that Tuesday, they've already announced that Ronda will defend the championship against an opponent to be determined at Evolution. So it's been officially announced she is going to defend the championship. I suspect that on Tuesday we'll get whatever the spark is going to be for a match. Now maybe they do like a little, I don't know why I keep saying Tuesday, because the Bellas are on both frickin' shows. It has me all confused. On Monday, I suspect that we'll get the spark for a match between Nikki and Ronda at Evolution. And then look, it could just be Nikki challenging her. It could be Nikki wins some sort of match to determine the number one contender. It could be a turn. I think a turn is a lot less likely, in part because, with all their reality show garbage, I just don't see them turning the Bellas, like blatantly turning them heel. So it probably will be a friendly challenge, or Nikki, winning some sort of number one contenders match. But I'm pretty sure, the rumors have been going around for weeks now. It looks pretty much like a lock that that's going to be the championship match at Evolution. So, Cedric Alexander and Melbourne's own Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight Championship. Again, I would have opened the show with this, but crowd loved Buddy. Lots of Buddy chants, big reaction. He came off like a total superstar here. Michael Cole reminded us on commentary that Cedric Alexander coming into this match had not been pinned all year. He was unbeaten all year. Won the Cruiserweight title at WrestleMania from Mustafa Ali, and he has been a dominant force on 205 Live ever since. So they protected him. They protected him very well up to this point. And as soon as the bell rang, as soon as the match began, we had an explosive knee from Buddy Murphy right out of the gate. So wicked that I think some people, myself included, bought that might just be the end of the match. It wasn't. It was a near fall. He followed that up with this gigantic dive out of the ring. He almost overshot Cedric Alexander, and it looked like he may have twisted his leg, but he was okay. He was all, this guy, you got to look. If you're Buddy Murphy, right, you're back in your hometown, you're in front of 70,000 people, probably the biggest crowd you've ever performed in front of. You're wrestling for the championship. You know going in that you're going to win the championship. This guy was just a ball of fire. He came out. He was all pent up. He couldn't wait to just unleash it. And so he's just a house of fire here at the beginning of the match. Slows down a little bit. Alexander hit a Michinoku driver to Buddy Murphy from the top rope for a near fall. We had a standing Spanish fly later on by Cedric for another near fall. Murphy kicked out of the lumbar check. I haven't watched every episode of 205 Live. I can't definitively sit here and say that nobody has kicked out of the lumbar check before, but I haven't seen it. So people were shocked, and people, he was getting a standing ovation, and people were really getting into it now at this point. Murphy hits Murphy's Law, which is his finish. It's the pump handle into what I believe is called a whale hunt. Although I don't think they refer to that move as, in that way on WWE television, but that's what it is. So he hits Murphy's Law, and he wins the Cruiserweight Championship. This was a great match, a short match, as most of these were, except the main event. We'll get to that in a second. But this only went about 10 minutes, but it was 10 minutes of almost all nonstop action. This was, up to this point, the best thing on the entire show. I enjoyed this more than AJ and Joe, honestly. And the right man won. So everything about this. This match would have been marred, I think, if Cedric would have won. This just felt to me going in, as Cedric has been champion for a very long time. He's been undefeated all year. He's been heavily protected. The year is almost over now. This is the right time, and it's the right place to do this title change. And having 70,000 people there made it feel like a really big deal. This felt like a turning point in the career of Buddy Murphy. I look at, Buddy Murphy, I look, even Cedric, and I look at Mustafa Ali. I look at those three, especially Mustafa Ali, though, and Buddy Murphy, as two guys who right now they're killing it in the cruiserweight division. That's cool. But at some point in the not too distant future, they need to break free from 205 Live and get their asses on Raw and SmackDown. These two guys should be mixing it up with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Those are the guys that they should be competing with, because these guys are that good, and I think at some point they could be major players on the main roster. But the longer I feel, and look, Buddy Murphy now is champion, so he's not going anywhere, and I think that's fine. Let him dominate the division for a while, like Neville did, right? Neville's another one, and I'll talk about Neville on the podcast tomorrow. But Neville, it was a great thing for him when that heel turn happened. And they basically handed him the cruiserweight division and said, here, this is yours now. And he took it and he ran with it. But you just get to a point, and I don't know if this is why he walked out of the company or if there was something else that he was unhappy with. Whatever it was, you just get to a point where you have to feel stifled. And you look at a guy with so much talent. Yeah, he's small, but so what? When you have the kind of talent that somebody like that has, you've got to, you can't keep them in a little box away from everybody else. That's the only thing I worry about when it comes to, a Buddy Murphy or a Mustafa Ali. So he had his moment here. He's going to be the linchpin, I guess, for a while of that division. But looking ahead to 2019, I hope they see that this guy is capable of a lot more than that, and they get him the hell away from that slowly. And they, transition him into either SmackDown or Raw, because I think that, he could be a money player for them at some point. So that's my spiel on Buddy Murphy here. I'm happy for him. Great match, big moment. We have the Shield against Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, and Drew McIntyre. Shield made their entrance through the crowd, old school. They had the black face masks, a la WrestleMania 30, only these didn't have skulls on them. I guess because Triple H had a skull on his. He was going to be doing that later in the show. Can't have two people doing the same thing, even though we see dives and the same moves in every single friggin' match. We can have roll-ups, right, every week on television. We could have, distraction roll-ups, and we can have dives every 5 seconds, but God forbid we should have, two different people wearing skull masks. I thought this was a great match, even better than the Cruiserweight title match. I still have a soft spot for these Shield six-man tags, so I admit I have a little bit of a blind spot when it comes to this, but I don't know. It's hard to imagine these three, when they have these six-man tags, having a bad match. It's not quite, the same as it was in 2013 and 2014 when they were doing it, but I thought that they all worked well together. It was a wild brawl right from the outset. Key came later on when Roman Reigns got tagged in. He inadvertently hit Dean Ambrose. He was on the apron, Ambrose was, and he got hit accidentally by a Superman punch that had been intended, I believe, for Drew McIntyre. And so fast forward a little bit later on, we have Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in the ring, and they are surrounded. We have Drew McIntyre. He's slowly crawling up on the apron on one side. Dolph Ziggler's on another end of the ring. He's crawling up onto the apron. And there's Dean and Braun Strowman as well. And there's Dean Ambrose. So now all four sides of the ring have people on the apron, and we don't know. Is Dean Ambrose going to side with the heels? Is he going to attack his brothers? What's going to happen here? So they really played it up like he just didn't know which side he was going to choose. Ultimately, he did side with the Shield. He attacked Braun Strowman. There's another big brawl that breaks out. Outside the ring, Ambrose is up against the barricade. Braun Strowman is sizing him up for a giant tackle of doom. He builds up a whole head of steam. He comes charging into Dean Ambrose, and at the very last second, off camera from out of nowhere, Roman Reigns flies into view. He saves Dean Ambrose. He takes a bullet for his brother. He spears Braun Strowman through the barricade, and they're both wiped out. Ziggler and McIntyre, they quickly throw Ambrose back into the ring. They're going to go for the Claymore zigzag combo. Rollins super kicks McIntyre out of the ring. Ziggler connects with a kick to Seth, turns around, dirty deeds, 1, 2, 3. Just like that, the Shield picks up the win. I thought this was a great finish to overall what was a great match. Now, I still would have had Braun Strowman pin Roman Reigns to give him let him pin the champion heading into the triple threat match at Crown Jewel. But they have a month before that show. They can still do something along those lines between now and then. That didn't have to be on this show, I guess. But I have very few complaints about this match. I thought this was, in terms of actual matches, for me, this was probably the best on the show. I know some people might say AJ and Joe. For me, I would go Shield 6-man number 1, Cruiserweight number 2, AJ Joe number 3. I mean, that was just the order in which I enjoyed those matches. One match I did not enjoy. Daniel Bryan against The Miz for the right to challenge for the WWE Championship. Miz immediately goes after Bryan's ribs that were injured on Smackdown. Bryan does the S-kicks. He misses the running knee. Instead, Miz hits a knee of his own for a near fall. Miz goes for the skull-crushing finale, and Bryan cradles him for the shock pin. I just told you the entire match. 2-minute match. Daniel Bryan wins with a roll-up. Now, nobody was expecting that to be the finish, so the reaction from people in the first few rows was exactly what you would expect it to be. It wasn't quite Brock Lesnar breaking the streak at WrestleMania 30 or anything like that, but people were shocked. This sucked. This sucked. And for an 8-year-long feud, if this really is how they end it, I just don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to that. You know, I did not need to see these two guys this late in the show go 15 minutes or anything like that. But still, 2-minute match. Bryan wins with a roll-up. Fuck you. This sucked. Now, that being said, we are now getting Daniel Bryan against AJ Styles for the WWE title at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia next month. I think that should be excellent. I would not count out Samoa Joe just yet. For everybody blasting WWE, or that will be, I'm sure, blasting WWE, or saying, oh, it's too bad, Joe had a lot of momentum, it's too bad they didn't go with him. I would not count out Samoa Joe just yet. I still think there is a chance, maybe not a big one, but I think there is a chance that he wins the championship at SmackDown 1000. Now, if they do set up a match with him and AJ at SmackDown 1000, that's it. It's do or die. If he doesn't win it there, he ain't winning that title ever. That's it. And it may already be it. This may have been the last hurrah for Joe because he tapped out. There was no ambiguity this time about the finish. There was no, referee missed something and he got screwed. No, he tapped out. Now, he had the built-in excuse of the knee injury, so at least they tried to protect him a little bit, but it's hard to come back from that. But if there's one last opportunity to do it, it's 2 weeks. SmackDown 1000, that's it. That's their last shot. They could have a WWE Championship match one final time, and have it on that show. I would not rule out Joe just yet, because if Joe were to win the championship on that show, obviously AJ would be entitled to a rematch. Bryan is now entitled to a championship match. It could very easily turn into a triple threat at Crown Jewel. It could be Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, and AJ Styles with Joe defending. It could happen. We already have one triple threat match for the championship with the Universal title on the line on that show. Would it be all that, unorthodox to think that they might have two on the same show? What's good for one is good for the other. So let's just wait a couple weeks and see what happens. I would not count out Samoa Joe's chances of being champion just yet. Then we had the main event. Triple H against The Undertaker. Last time ever, but not really. I've been saying that for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I meant every word of it. And I guarantee you it is not the last time we are going to see these two in the ring. Of course, what was so funny to me is if you think back to Raw last Monday, Shawn Michaels came out. And at some point during his promo, he specifically mentioned, I believe he said, one-on-one for the last time. So we're already qualifying it. It only took a few weeks for them to now qualify it. Instead of saying last time ever, oh wait, it's last time ever in a one-on-one match. I love that. I love it. Shawn Michaels, ringside in the corner of Triple H. Mayor Kane in the corner of his brother, The Undertaker. Very start of the match, JoJo makes the announcement that this is a no disqualification match, which is something that this match sorely needed. At this point, let me just say this. Let me just say this before I get into the specifics of this match. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this for what it was. Again, maybe that's just me having a soft spot when it comes to seeing some of the legends, and we've seen some Undertaker matches in recent years where he really didn't look that great, and they weren't terribly long matches. He was gassed, or he just looked like he was moving like he was a crippled zombie or something. And I mean, he still kind of moves like he's a crippled zombie. Then again, it is his gimmick, right? He is the Undertaker. But I enjoyed this for what it was. Now let me just get that out of the way first. The fact, though, is that these guys need to, at this point, rely on smoke and mirrors, and that's completely understandable. Without them, without the no DQ stip, without being able to use a table and a chair and all kinds of weapons and a sledgehammer, okay? Without all that, and without interference from people like Shawn Michaels and Kane, who are also old, this would have been unbelievably dull. And I know a lot of you are probably listening going, well, how does that differ from what the match actually turned out to be? The match, even with all of that stuff, was incredibly dull. True. There were a lot of very slow parts of this match, but they took more abuse than I thought they would. Honestly, they did more in this match than I expected. That for a glorified house show, they did more than I expected them to. Triple H took a lot of abuse. Undertaker took a lot of abuse here in this match. They weren't all bloodied up or anything like that. Triple H in particular, I mean, his back was all marked up, and he took some body drops on the concrete and stuff. And look, I respect the effort. And they told a story here in this match. The story going in was that this was their final fight, even though I cannot believe it. And it's a complete insult to the audience. They were talking on commentary openly about their WrestleMania 28 match. They made reference to the end of an era match. Renee Young said, I was just a fan at that time. I remember that match. And I'm sitting there, do you realize the irony? I'm just thinking to myself, do these people not get the irony of billing this match last time ever? And yet on commentary, you're telling us about the last time they had a match, how it was the end of an era. What the fuck does that even mean? We never really knew. We never found out. We just sort of assumed, well, that means it's probably Undertaker's last match, or that means that, we're not going to see the Attitude Era guys anymore, or that was going to be the last match ever between Triple H and the Undertaker, none of which turned out to be true. But yet they're talking, remember that end of an era match? I sure do. I sure do. But I will say this match did not need to go nearly 30 minutes. On a show that was littered with matches that went 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 8 minutes, they went over 27 minutes from bell to bell in this match. Almost half an hour. I couldn't believe that. When it was over, I just, and I saw the actual time of the match. I mean, it felt like a 20-minute match, but this was almost 30. And I said, did this match really need to go 27 minutes? Absolutely not. And it might have actually been a better match had they shaved about 8 or 10 minutes off. There was a spot here where they brawled out into the crowd. So they took the action into the crowd, this just sea of humanity. And they go over to one of these technical equipment areas or whatever. And Undertaker grabs a cable. I don't know if it was a camera cable or just a cable that was hooked up to some piece of equipment somewhere. And he wrapped it around Triple H's throat. And my first thought was, uh-oh, that's a no-no. And you could tell Triple H almost immediately, he just ripped that thing off his neck, and they tried to move on. I wouldn't even put it past them if they edited that out of the replay, honestly. Undertaker is probably the one guy who would not get in trouble for doing that. But that is a big no-no. That is a big no. Daniel Bryan got fired for choking a guy with a tie on television, okay? They don't accept stuff like that anymore. So that was kind of surprising to see. But then again, if you think of their WrestleMania 27 match, there was some controversy even then. There was a chair shot to the head, even though Undertaker got his hand up at the last minute. It was hard to tell. And people were wondering, oh, is he going to be fined for that? it's hard because you got a guy like Undertaker who, for so many years, he wasn't constrained by all of these rules. You can't do this, you can't choke anymore, you can't do that. And sometimes you sort of fall back on those old habits. But when I saw that, I just thought immediately to myself, uh-oh. Triple H could not get that thing off his neck fast enough. There was a different point in the match where Undertaker teased a running dive. Remember the old running dive that Undertaker used to do at WrestleMania? He almost killed himself at WrestleMania 25. Couldn't help himself. He still did it at WrestleMania 26. He did it at WrestleMania 27. And the only reason that he stopped doing the dives was because at WrestleMania 28, they were enclosed inside the cell, and there was no room for him to dive. I wonder if they made that a Hell in a Cell match to protect this guy, to protect him from himself. And obviously his body has broken down even more since then. But for a moment there, I thought, well, this guy, I think he had some kind of hip operation earlier in the year, or maybe late last year. He is moving around better than he was probably a year ago. And I thought, oh God, Triple H is outside, Shawn Michaels is outside. They're sort of huddled together in a way that you would expect they're going to catch somebody. And I bought into it for about 2 seconds there. He went to go hit the ropes, and I literally, like out loud, it must have been, 8:30 in the morning here. And or maybe it was later than that, but I'm just sitting here going, you better fucking not. Don't fucking do it. And thankfully they cut him off and he didn't do it. I was genuinely concerned at that point. And I hate when I watch matches and all I can really do, like in this case, these guys obviously are a lot older. I hate when I just sit here and instead of kind of allowing myself to enjoy it, I'm more concerned, like, please don't die, And so in that moment, that's what I was thinking. But again, all the plunder came out. There were chair shots and there were tables, and Shawn Michaels was being a pest outside the ring, and Kane would chase after him and Michaels would run away. And there was a table that was set up outside the ring, and Shawn Michaels super kicked Kane, and Kane just very gently fell backwards onto the table, and Triple H climbed up onto the apron. He did a diving elbow off the apron. Thankfully the table did break, so that took Kane out of the equation here in this match for a while. Back in the ring, Undertaker hits a tombstone pile driver to Triple H. Triple H kicked out. And the Undertaker looks up at the referee, Mike Chioda, and Mike's like, 2 count only, got the shoulder up, and Undertaker, he's getting back to his feet, and he punches Mike Chioda in the face, knocks him out. Well, that was uncalled for. So now the referee is out, because Undertaker is just being a total dick, and he's hitting Triple H with chair shots, and he puts the chair around Triple H's throat. Now, Undertaker keeps looking at Shawn Michaels on the outside and pointing at him, and he's talking trash. I like that. I don't know. He was acting in a way that you would not expect the Undertaker to act. He was acting like a real arrogant prick here in this match. And Shawn Michaels is begging him, don't do it, don't do it. And he's like, I hope you're watching. You better watch. So he's just taunting Shawn Michaels on the outside. And Shawn gets up on the apron. He tries to get in the ring. Undertaker knocks him down. Triple H comes back, hits a pedigree. Undertaker kicks out. So Triple H takes the chair, and he puts the chair around the Undertaker's throat, like the Undertaker had done to him earlier, right? Turnabout is fair play. Second rope, Triple H comes off, stomps the chair. Undertaker got this weird... I can't even describe how he sold this. I was laughing at the way that he sold this. Triple H went for a cover. Kane drags the second referee out of the ring. So now that referee, he lands awkwardly, and now he's hurt. And so now we have 2 referees down and out. We have no ref. Shawn Michaels finds the sledgehammer, pulls it out from under the ring. He gives the sledgehammer to Triple H. Kane, now you got to picture this, right? Triple H is slumped down in one corner. Undertaker is slumped down on the opposite side of the ring in the other corner. Shawn Michaels hands the sledgehammer to Triple H, and on the other side, Kane hands a steel chair to the Undertaker. So we're about to have a chair versus sledgehammer duel. Now this kind of reminds me of rock, paper, scissors, right? Scissors will always lose to rock. Paper will always beat rock. Scissors will always beat paper. We know these things. These are just common basic facts of life. And one other basic fact of life that Undertaker should have been well aware of is that in the battle of the sledgehammer against the chair, the sledgehammer will always win out. And sure enough, he swings the sledgehammer into the chair, hits Undertaker. Triple H wins that battle. There's no referee. So Triple H goes to use the sledgehammer again. This time, though, Undertaker traps him in Hell's Gate. Still no referee. He's got him in Hell's Gate. Triple H has possession of the sledgehammer, and now he's choking out the Undertaker with it. Undertaker is just moaning, and now both guys are out. Undertaker's out. Triple H is out. People are chanting, "This is awesome." Again, because the match itself was not awesome. But people were sort of, I think, just wrapped up in the moment. And they respected the effort that these two guys were putting in. And so out of respect, they chanted, "This is awesome." Okay? So, again, I can understand that. I kind of fall in the same camp here. Not that I thought the match was awesome, because it wasn't. But these guys were beating the holy hell out of each other. And, you know, they were having a war in the middle of the ring. Shawn Michaels gets possession of the sledgehammer. He goes to use it on the Undertaker. Kane is back in the ring now, and he saves the day, and Undertaker dumps Shawn Michaels out to the arena floor. Undertaker decides, you know what, I'm not going to use the sledgehammer. I could use it, but I'm not going to. He ditches it. And he goes to hit Shawn Michaels with a tombstone. Triple H, though, hits Undertaker with the sledgehammer. Shawn Michaels super kicks the Undertaker, and Undertaker then stumbles into a pedigree and is pinned. To me, the outcome here, it was not a surprise at all. In fact, I would be very surprised if people did pick Undertaker to win going into this show. I don't know why you would. If you had any knowledge of the rumors that, you know, they're going to do a tag team match in Saudi Arabia, which they are, that became very apparent here at the very end of this show, then it made absolute sense to think that Triple H was going to win. Or if nothing else, that there would be a non-decision, right? Because it wasn't, well, I guess they made it no DQ, so at that point they kind of handicapped themselves. So yeah, at that point, to me, it was just obvious that Triple H was going to win this match, because he needed the win a hell of a lot more for credibility to build to a tag team match. I mean, if Undertaker just beat him clean with a tombstone or tapped him out to Hell's Gate, how is that any different than all of the matches at WrestleMania that the two of them had, and all the matches at WrestleMania that the Undertaker had with Shawn Michaels? If the same person wins over and over and over and over again, after a while, you know what I mean? It just, why would anybody be interested in seeing that? It's like one of the things I never really understood about why Hulk Hogan always had to win against Ric Flair. Now they're best of friends. Hulk and Rick, they're tight. They're thick as thieves now. But when they were working together in WCW, you know, like when Hogan first came in, he beat Flair for the championship, right? That was a big match, Bash at the Beach, 94. Fine. Hogan came in, made a big splash, won the title. And I feel like every time, and I'm sure Flair had some wins in there, but just thinking off the top of my head, all the television matches they had, all the pay-per-view matches they had, Age in a Cage, everything else, Hogan always won. He just, like, Flair could not buy a win over this guy. And it just, to me, I don't understand if that's insecurity on Hogan's part. I don't know if that's just him playing politics. I don't know if that's just what Eric Bischoff wanted, because Eric Bischoff, after a while, didn't like Ric Flair. I don't know exactly what it was. But to me, it was never really interesting, because the outcome of those matches was never in doubt. So when you have two big names like this, you've got to throw the other guy a bone every now and then. It's not like there's a streak anymore. This is not WrestleMania. So naturally, Triple H picks up the win, and they're going to build to something else. If you didn't believe it before, you can believe it now. They all come together, all four guys, show of respect. They're shaking hands, they're hugging. There's a big pyro celebration. They're all holding each other's arms up in the air. I wasn't buying it for a second. I'm watching Undertaker the whole time. I'm waiting for the choke slam or waiting for the tombstone to come. Because, you know, I've been hearing the same rumors that all of you have been hearing about Crown Jewel. And I'm thinking, well, this would be a pretty anticlimactic way for the show to end. Triple H beats The Undertaker, and they just go off the air with Undertaker endorsing Triple H and pointing at him. And, like, it can't end like this. And sure enough, it did not. Undertaker looked at Kane, and Kane looked at The Undertaker. I think Kane punched Shawn Michaels in the face. Undertaker picked up Triple H, hit him with a tombstone. I did pop for that. They took Shawn Michaels, whose hat went flying. I have to say that the hero of this show, and the one that put in the greatest effort, was Shawn Michaels' hat. It stayed on his head for a very long time until it just could not stay on his head any longer, and it went flying off. And He's got that, it's not a bandana. I don't know. It's like a headband. It's a headband. He's got the headband around his head. I don't know why he bothers wearing the headband. You know, he legitimately looks like one of the wet bandits from Home Alone. I mean, he just needs to ditch the headband and embrace the baldness. So they take Shawn Michaels outside the ring, and they're clearing off the announce desk. And the Kane picks up Shawn Michaels. They pick him up for a chokeslam. They put him through the table. Thankfully, it broke. So now Shawn is wiped out. And the announcers are saying, oh, this is a betrayal. This is a betrayal. As though the four of them were just bosom buddies or something, like Dean Ambrose is turning on the Shield. Apparently, it's a big betrayal. These guys that have been feuding for years, and for weeks now, we've seen them on television talking about respect and insulting one another and deeply personal, like grave insults. And they're talking about this like it's some sort of big betrayal, so I couldn't really buy into that. I just looked at it as Undertaker was frustrated as fuck that he was shown up by Triple H. This is not the way that he envisioned this ending, and so he decided to take it out on them. He decided to take it out on these two cocky, arrogant assholes that he's been feuding with for years and years. And, and that's exactly what you would expect them to do. So the Brothers of Destruction walk out together. And I actually thought that was a pretty cool way for the show to end. Hell of a lot better than just going off the air with them holding each other's hands up in the air. And they look badass, Undertaker and Kane did, walking to the back. And so now we're going to get a tag team match in Saudi Arabia, November 2nd, Crown Jewel. The announcement, I'm sure, could come as early as this week. This is not the end of this. We're going to see Shawn Michaels and Triple H. Shawn Michaels back out of retirement for the first time in, 8 years, I guess? 8.5 years? Taking on Undertaker and Kane. And I think it's going to be the same exact thing that we had here. I don't expect that it's going to be a great match. I expect that it's going to be, it'll be cool to see the four of them in the ring. Here's the problem with that, though. We basically got the tag team match tonight. Did we not? Or this morning. There I go again. We basically got the match here on this show. Shawn Michaels is bumping around like crazy. Kane gets put through a table. They're interfering every 5 seconds. I mean, we basically got Crown Jewel a month early. Shawn Michaels came out of retirement here on this show. So now they'll make it official, I guess. It'll be an official tag team match. I don't know that match can be better than what we got here. I think they gave us the best that they could possibly give us. Again, with all the different spots and the abuse that they took and the table spots and the chair spots. What more could these four guys do? Are they going to have a classic wrestling match? No. I mean, even with Shawn Michaels in there, you still got the other three. Are they going to wrap themselves in barbed wire? I hope not. I don't know what we're going to get in Saudi Arabia that we didn't get here on this show, in all honesty. When this was over, even though I enjoyed it for what it was, and yes, it was slow and it was plotting and it was sad in a lot of different parts, although I will say Undertaker looked better than he's looked at other points in the past. When this was over and they went off the air, I was left even more bummed that Shawn Michaels is going to waste a perfectly good retirement to come back for a Saudi payday. And I imagine that he'll wrestle more than just the one match at Saudi Arabia. There's talk of him and Undertaker at Survivor Series, maybe. And it's hard to think that if Shawn comes back now, he's not going to have a WrestleMania match. So, look, Shawn Michaels may end up having a whole bunch of really great matches. Just because Undertaker and Triple H were plodding along, Shawn Michaels was taking all the bumps. He was bouncing around like a rubber ball out there. I don't doubt that he could still go out there and do it. It's going to be hard for me to watch a Shawn Michaels match with no hair. And it's not just the hair thing, but just I felt like, do we really need him to come back and spoil what had been, in a lot of ways, I think, the perfect retirement, the perfect storybook ending to one of the great careers of all time? He's going to make that bank. I don't fault him for it. I don't blame him for it. I probably would do the same exact thing if they flashed millions of dollars in my face or whatever it is that they're offering him. So I get it. And I'm going to try to enjoy it, and I hope he goes out there and doesn't look too far off the way we remember him. But there's still a big part of me that's just very sad that he's coming back for this. So that's your Super ShowDown review. Again, I think the best way to describe it is if you paid $20 to go to a local house show that comes to town and you have 10,000 people there, you have certain expectations about what that show is going to be. It's going to be very basic in a lot of ways. You'll get a couple of good matches. Basically, this was that show, only in front of 70,000 instead of 10. That's what this show was. And you had a special main event. They tried to make that thing as special as they possibly could. And again, I can't shit all over it. There was something about it that I just enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. It was slow and plotting in a lot of different parts, and it was sad, honestly, to watch at other points. But I want to make one point here, and then we'll wrap this up. And it struck me as I was watching the end of the show when they were all holding each other's arms up in the air. And look, the people still eat it up. When Undertaker makes an appearance, it's a big deal. It feels special. When they see Shawn Michaels, right? I mean, it's the law of diminishing returns. You have these guys every week on television. They're not going to feel as special. I think Brock Lesnar understood that. But I watched this and I thought to myself, back to the comments that Kevin Nash made. And I'm going to get into this on the podcast tomorrow, so I don't want to get too far into it here. But he had made comments recently to the effect of, nobody's over. All the young guys, all the current talent on the roster, nobody's over. It's all about the old guard and the old guys, and none of these guys are like that. And he blamed it a lot on like high spots and flippy moves and stuff, and he was way off in that respect. He's not wrong, but as far as the reason, he was way off. And I watched this and I thought to myself, you want to see one of the many reasons, besides the booking, you want to look at one of the many reasons why nobody is over like these guys. First of all, those guys have 20, 30 years of experience in television time. So yeah, they've got a leg up on the current talent for that reason. But why is it that there's such a reliance on the old guard? I'm fine with having a special attraction match, but when you build around it as your main event, this was, make no mistake, going into the show and then in execution, this was the main event of this show. Here in 2018, Undertaker versus Triple H is the headline attraction here on this show. They're going to go to Saudi Arabia. I don't know what's going to end the show. I imagine it'll be the Universal Championship triple threat. But apparently the Saudi prince there or whatever, the boy wonder, all he wants is all the old guys. Last time he wanted Yokozuna and the Ultimate Warrior, and I could just picture all the WWE people like putting him on hold, being like, who wants to be the one to tell him, And so they bring all the old names back because that's what people want to see. There's rumors Hulk Hogan might come back on the Saudi Arabia show, which would be rich. Hulk Hogan, the real American, makes his big comeback in Saudi Arabia. I would laugh my ass off. But there's a problem here, and the problem is that if you are a Kofi Kingston, if you are a Cesaro, if you are an AJ Styles, if you are anybody from the current crop of talent on that roster, and you look at this, and you're sitting in the back, what are you thinking? I genuinely would love to know what they're thinking, and I would not publicly expect them to tell the truth. But you have to believe that there are at least some, if not a lot of those guys sitting in the back who either didn't even wrestle on the show, or if they did, they were way, way earlier in the night. And they're watching on a monitor, and they're thinking to themselves, that should be me out there. Why are those guys still out there in the main event while I'm sitting back here on my ass? I'm in my prime years right now. These guys are 49, 52, 53. They move around, some of them, like they're 65. Why are they out there in the main event, and I'm sitting on my ass back here? Why is the WWE Championship mired in the middle of the show, a show where there is no other World Championship match and the Universal title wasn't even defended? Why is that title in the mid-card and Undertaker and Triple H are hitting each other with sledgehammers and chairs here in the main event in 2018? And so I look at this and I say, boy, I think back to the Attitude Era and 1998. Can you imagine in 1998 if Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund and Billy Graham were called upon to wrestle in the main event of SummerSlam and WrestleMania? Can you imagine how ridiculous that is? And do you think that guys like The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H would have gotten over the way they did? No, because they had this new young crop of talent. They put the focus on them. The product was hot. They let those guys run, and they just got over like gangbusters, and everybody made money, and it was the hottest period that I can ever remember in the history of that company, maybe in the history of wrestling. When those two companies were neck and neck fighting it out every week at their peak, and it was only about a 2-year period, 3 years, but everybody was making money and everything was hot. Now, WCW was a different story because WCW really did rely a little too much, which is part of the reason why they're no longer alive, on the old guard. WWE had no choice but to make new stars and get them over and book them in a way where they wouldn't be buried, and they flourished. But here we are, and it's been 20 years, 25 years, almost 30 years for some of these guys. They've had long careers. They were the top stars back during that period, Undertaker even before that. And here we are in 2018, and they're still relying on these same guys to basically carry the mothership for them. I mean, they're doing what they feel they have to do. But ask yourself, why do we not have guys that are even close to the same level as these guys? It can't just be that, oh, they've been around for so long. There's got to be more to it than that. There is not a single person elsewhere except Brock Lesnar on that roster who feels even remotely as special as the guys that were in this main event, as Shawn Michaels, as The Undertaker, as Triple H. They feel like stars on a whole other level, and there are guys that have been in this company for many, many years. And I'm not going to use Kofi because Kofi's a tag team guy, but Kofi's been around a long time. Dolph's been around a long time. There are guys that are still young, somewhat young, who have been around a while. Why are they not looked at in a way that feels even remotely special compared to these guys? Why is there still this reliance on the old guard when they should be creating a new guard? And they could be the ones 10 years from now being called on to have a match at a special show. No, you know what's going to happen in 10 years? It's going to be The Undertaker against somebody else. It's like time stood still in this company. They hit this wall, this force field they can't break through, and we're living in a time warp. And if you're a company trying to create new stars while you're still relying on the old guard to get you out of a jam, oh, we got a bad rating, let's put this guy on TV. Oh, we got a big show coming up, let's have The Undertaker in the main event against this guy, or Shawn Michaels go up against that guy. There's a place for those guys. But when they're in the main event and you're building everything around them, if you're on the main roster, what is going through your head? Ask yourself that question. And when you hear people like Kevin Nash talk about, well, nobody's over, ask yourself why. And I will point you to this. Maybe not Exhibit A, but if it ain't Exhibit A, it's Exhibit B, C, or D. Of the many reasons that we could talk, I could go on for hours about why that is, but I will point to you this as an example. And this does not help. It might help in the short term. It will not help this company in the long term. And they have to do something about that, because one of the reasons why people are fleeing is not just because the shows are fucking boring. It's because there's nobody around anymore who really feels like a star. And maybe that's just the whole brand thing. It's about the brand. It's not about the stars. Well, maybe it should be. Because I watched that scene at the end here and I thought to myself, boy, this company doesn't realize it, or maybe they do. They got problems. They got big problems when it comes to creating new stars on this level. If they're going to keep relying on these guys, give it a few more years. Maybe not even that long. They're going to be in for a rude awakening. Leave comments down below. What'd you think of the show? Do you agree with those comments? Am I way off base here? I want to hear from you guys. Give this video a thumbs up if you would be so kind. You could follow me on Twitter. @Solomonster is my handle on there. Or The Solomonster on Instagram if you're more on that platform. The full podcast, as you know, go up each and every Sunday on thesolomonster.com. We are now on iHeartRadio. You can stream us there, Spotify as well, iTunes, Stitcher, all the usual places. We'll have another review, Sound Off Extra, on this channel for Evolution at the end of the month, another big show. And then again, not even a week later, is the Crown Jewel show from Saudi Arabia. So there's going to be a bunch of Sound Off Extras coming to this channel, in addition to all the other clips that you get each and every week. So please hit that sub button if you haven't already done so. I will see you guys back here for 567, episode 567 elsewhere. That's tomorrow. And back here on YouTube again very soon. Until then, take care, guys.